We have a lot to talk about today, but first, a quote from our president, Donald J. Trump. And I quote, "I watched it literally like I was watching a television show. If you would have seen the speed, the violence." Now, this was said before addressing the American people about the military operation he ordered in Venezuela. Trump chose instead to give a telephone interview to Fox and Friends Weekend. It was there that he described the invasion of another country, the airstrikes, the civilian deaths, and the capture and removal of a sitting president as a spectacle or entertainment, rather than acknowledging the far-reaching ramifications of a decision that carries irreversible human, legal, and geopolitical consequences. In what we may look back on as the moment the world shifted, this action further destabilized the global order and left the United States and its allies more vulnerable than at any point in decades. This signals that the rules, the norms, and the limits that once governed state power no longer apply. And when I really think about this moment, it's not lost on me why it's so dangerous, because it's not what Trump said, but what he deliberately did not do. He did not immediately address the nation after ordering airstrikes. He did not seek authorization from Congress despite the War Powers Resolution requiring congressional approval for sustained military action abroad. And he didn't even act with allies. There was no United Nations mandate, and that's a fact that was pointed out by the UN Secretary General, who has warned it sets a, and I quote, dangerous precedent under international law. There was no urgency that required bypassing these steps. This was all a manufactured crisis, and we need to talk about that part too. History has shown us exactly where this path leads. In Mussolini's Italy and in Franco's Spain, power didn't disappear overnight. It was normalized through bypassed institutions, sidelined legislatures, and the quiet redefinition of what counted as necessary action. In Nazi Germany, emergency powers were justified again and again as temporary, until the Reichstag no longer mattered, and the law existed only to serve the leader. Authoritarian power grows when the rules meant to restrain it are treated as oppositional, and when people are taught to see process as an inconvenience instead of a safeguard. I know we're all watching this unfold, and it's impossible not to feel deeply troubled for the future of not just the United States or Venezuela, but the entire world. Because when the most powerful country in the world breaks the rules, it gives permission for others to do the same. And I know many of us are coming back to this same point. If this was really about drugs, he would have said so. He would have laid out a plan to dismantle the trafficking networks, explained how the operation would actually stop the flow, and told the American people what comes next. He would have talked about securing the territory, keeping it stable, and making sure the drug trade couldn't just rebuild itself the moment we leave. And shouldn't he have talked about who's taking over the government he just removed, how that transition would work, and how long U.S. troops are staying? Isn't that what a president says when the goal is to solve an issue he's called simple and easy to fix? Not to consolidate control and seize access to oil? But Trump didn't say any of that. What he did say was that Venezuela's oil has been stolen, that American gas companies should come in and run their fuel, and that the United States should run the country until a new government is in place. Except there is no plan for that government, because none of this was about rebuilding Venezuela. It was about claiming it. Trump doesn't care about Venezuela. He cares about oil. And when he was asked about it on Fox, this is how he answered. And I quote, "As far as last night was concerned, it was really genius. What they did is genius. Democrats, maybe they'll take a shot, They'll take a shot. All they do is complain. They don't talk about it. They should say, you know what? We did a great job. We're stopping drugs from coming into this country, and nobody's been able to do it until we came along. But they should say, great job. They shouldn't say, oh gee, maybe it's not constitutional. The same old stuff that we've been hearing for years and years and years." And I know that sounds like rubbish. I know that doesn't make much sense, right? But it's what he said. He didn't explain how this stops the drug trade. He mocked the idea that the Constitution matters. He told his supporters it was genius. He called it a win. But none of this sounds like a mission to protect people. It sounds like the logic of someone who thinks he's above the law and who knows that no one around him is going to stop him. And of course, none of this stops at Venezuela. Trump is already floating the same plan for Cuba. It's all part of the regime's expanding blueprint for global control. And he's now branding this imperialistic vision as, and I'm almost embarrassed to say this, but Donroe Doctrine. It's a narcissistic spin on the Monroe Doctrine, replacing history with his own name because he can't stand not being the headline. His enablers know exactly how to bait him. They hand him a shiny label, and he'll chase it, not because it's smart policy, but because it flatters his ego. This, and I quote, doctrine, imagines the United States as the rightful ruler of the entire Western Hemisphere, where oil isn't just a commodity, it's the currency of dominance. And we all knew this was coming. When the Pentagon released the National Security Strategy document, you know, the one dividing the world into spheres of influence, I've talked about that a bunch in the past, because it spells out exactly what they intend to do. The Americas are marked as ours. Europe was ceded to Russia. Asia was handed to China. It looked cartoonish at the time. Now not so much. Now it's exactly what we thought. And he talks like American gas companies are entitled to reclaim and run foreign oil operations simply because they once did business there. Trump likes to ignore the reality, and this time it's that commercial presence does not equate to ownership of land. It never has. But in Trump's mind, he's already rewritten the rules. He claims that the land tied to those oil ventures was, again, embarrassingly stolen, and that the oil itself was taken from us, and that we're simply taking back what's ours. It's a lie. But it's a convenient lie. And his MAGA base is already parroting it, using that fiction to justify why their sons, daughters, and grandchildren might be deployed into yet another war, dragged into a conflict driven not by national interest, but by Trump's obsession with power, oil, and the legacy he thinks he deserves. But this isn't just about oil. It's about his legacy. Trump wants to be remembered like the other strongmen he idolizes. He thinks he's playing on the same level field as Putin and Xi, but they're playing him. Russia had long-standing ties to Venezuela's oil. Trump just blew them up. China has infrastructure and fuel deals lined up. Gone. And while Trump isolates the United States with this fantasy of strength, those two leaders, who are far more strategic, are quietly building deeper alliances with each other. We could very well end up in a global crisis with no one left to stand beside us. And that's what happens when you treat your allies so horribly. Meanwhile, our troops are on the ground, sent into another country with no strategy, leadership, or clear endgame. Trump believes he can bomb a nation, drag out its president, and call it success. But history tells us what happens next. Backlash, instability, power vacuums, and the birth of extremists who will one day turn their eyes back on us. We've seen it in Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, Syria. Every time we've claimed to be fixing something, every single time we've left it worse. And this is where the so-called peace president is spending our tax dollars. And we can't pretend that this is only about oil or power. There's another layer. There are still over 5 million Epstein-related documents waiting to be released. And I wonder, how many more wars does he have locked and loaded to bury the truth? And this is where we're at in this moment. We cannot let this become the new normal. If we don't push back now, Venezuela will only be the beginning. It will become a new foreign policy model. Just like Putin, Trump will not stop until he is forced to stop. This isn't America first. This is America unchecked. And let me be clear about one more thing. Venezuela President Nicolas Maduro is a dictator, and I will never pretend otherwise. And the Venezuelan people deserve better. Better than him, and better than what we are doing now and plan to do in the months and years ahead. Because what's coming isn't freedom, it's exploitation. Trump says he's going to give the Venezuelan people a share of the oil profits. He won't. He never intended to do it. He doesn't care about them. He only wants more money, leverage, and power. Do they deserve a better leader? Yes, absolutely. But not this way. Not through invasion. Not through a regime change without any plans for what comes next. And here's the last thing I'll leave you with. If today's operation was really about stopping the drug trade, if it was truly about protecting American lives, why did Trump pardon Juan Orlando Hernandez? You know, the former president of Honduras, the one who was convicted of trafficking hundreds of tons of cocaine into the United States. I mean, that's the real story. That's the whole story, right there. This was another dark day for the American people. We should all expect it to get much worse. Trump has nothing to lose and everything to gain, but we do. We still have everything to lose, but we also have everything to fight for. Because as bleak as this moment feels, we're not out of time. More people are waking up every single day to what Trump is doing. It's not fast enough. We all know that, and I feel that deeply, but it is happening. That means that this fight isn't over. We can still say no to fascism and make it stick. Congress is back in session this week. It might feel like a waste of time, but please contact your representatives anyways. Keep the pressure on them. They notice more than they admit, and make sure that people in your life know the truth, especially the ones still convinced that this is only about drugs. We have to stop the spread of disinformation and propaganda if we are going to have a chance of pulling this country back from the edge. If you've made it this far, we're probably on the same page. I'm working hard to spread this message and reach as many people as possible. So if you can, please like this video and subscribe. And for all of my daily posts, you can find me on Substack by searching Heather Delaney Reese. I've also included a link below. And remember, there's always hope for America. I'll see you tomorrow.